Story number 1 is one of those grizzly bear stories that never really leaves your head once you hear it. I had this bow hunter in the studio, tough guy, spends more days in the mountains than most people spend in their own backyard. He is out in real Alaska backcountry, alone, carrying a bow and a small can of bear spray, thinking about elk and deer, not thinking about becoming a chew toy. He is moving through thick brush on a side hill, doing everything right, wind in his face, making noise now and then, keeping his eyes open for sign. Late afternoon, that golden kind of light slanting through the trees. He said he had that feeling you get when you know animals are around, but you cannot see them yet, almost like the forest is holding its breath. He drops down into this little draw, pushes through some alders, and then the world just explodes. What he thought was a dark stump about 10 meters in front of him stands up. It is not a stump. It is a giant sow grizzly that had been bedded down with cubs in the brush. He has walked straight into the one situation every hunter has nightmares about. Mom with babies, surprised at close range. He said the first thing he remembers is the sound. Not a movie roar. More like a deep, heavy huff and the snap of branches as this huge animal spins and comes straight at him. There is no time for strategy. No time to think, I will get my spray, I will get my pistol. She is already closing the distance with that scary speed big bears have. Head low, ears back, that big hump over her shoulders rolling like a muscle engine. He pulls the bear spray because it is the only thing he can get to. He hits the trigger and this orange cloud blasts out, but she is already on top of him. The spray hits her in the face and makes her even madder. She slams into him like a truck. The ground goes out from under him. He is on his back, ribs crunching, and there is fur in his face. He feels her teeth on his arm first, crunching down through jacket, through flesh, all the way to bone. He said it felt like a car door slamming on his forearm. She shakes him like a dog with a rope toy. He hears his own bones cracking over the sound of her breathing. All he can smell is wet fur and that musky bear smell and the bitter sting of pepper spray. Instinct kicks in. He curls up, tries to protect his neck, pulls his legs up to shield his belly. She claws at his back, his legs, bites into his shoulder. He said the weirdest part was that his mind split in two. One half is screaming in terror, the other half is almost calm, just observing. So this is what it feels like. This is how it ends. At some point in that chaos, he remembers something he heard 100 times. In a defensive attack, play dead. Make the bear think you are no longer a threat, so he goes limp. He stops fighting, stops yelling, just lets his body flop face down, hands laced over the back of his neck. The sow keeps chewing on him for a bit, giving him these crushing blows with her paws, then suddenly she stops. He can feel her weight above him, feel her breath on his neck. She sniffs him, snorts, gives him one more swat that drives his face into the dirt, and then the weight lifts. He does not move. He hears brush breaking as she hustles her cubs away. He lies there for a long time, afraid that if he even twitches, she will come back to finish the job. Blood is soaking into his clothes. His arm is numb and wrong. His back is on fire. But he is breathing, and he is not in bear jaws anymore. Finally, when the forest goes quiet again, he rolls onto his back and looks up at the sky. He said the blue looked unreal, like he had never noticed it before. He checks himself. Huge gashes, deep punctures, one arm full of puncture holes and bent in ways it should not bend. But nothing is spraying. He can wiggle his toes. Now comes the second half of the nightmare. He is kilometers from his truck, alone, half shredded, and the bear is still somewhere out there. He wraps his arm as best he can with some fabric from his shirt. He forces himself to stand. Every step hurts. His heart is pounding. He is listening for every twig snap, expecting that bear to come charging back at any moment. But he starts walking. One slow step after another, following the faint trail he had been on. Hours later, he stumbles out at his truck and somehow drives himself to where he can get help. By the time he is sitting in a hospital bed telling his family what happened, the bruises are coming up in dark purple patches and the full map of claw marks shows up across his back and legs. When he told it on the podcast, the part that really got me was what he said about after. He said the woods felt different to him for a long time. He still loved them, still hunted, but that sense of, I know what I am doing, I am in control, was gone. He had looked straight at the real landlord of that valley, and it had tossed him around like a rag doll and then simply walked away. That will change the way you look at trees forever. Now let's talk about story number 2, and this one is about a different predator, one that feels like a ninja version of a grizzly, a mountain lion. I had a trail runner on who told this story, and just listening to it, you start checking every shadow in your imagination. He is out on a familiar route in the foothills. Lone dirt trail, rolling terrain, sage and scrub oak on either side. Middle of the day, clear weather, sunlight pouring down, the kind of time when most people feel invincible out there. You think predators are a dawn and dusk problem. He has his headphones in one ear, leaving the other ear open so he can hear if a bike is coming. He is in that runner trance, thinking about work and life and whatever, not really thinking about being prey. What he does not know is that a big cat has been shadowing him for several minutes. Mountain lions are almost invisible when they want to be. They move like fog. This one is above the trail, in the rocks and brush, matching his pace, watching him. The runner said there was no warning, no growl, no scream, just impact. He feels an explosion of pain in his shoulder and upper back, like somebody dropped a heavy sandbag on him from above. He is driven face first into the dirt. All the air blasts out of his lungs. He tries to push up and cannot. There is weight on him, and he realizes in this frozen, crystal-clear moment, something is on my back, and it is trying to bite my neck. The cat has him pinned. Its claws are sunk into his shoulders. Its jaws are snapping at the back of his head, trying to find purchase. This is how wild cats kill. They go for the neck, crush the windpipe, hold you until you stop moving. He said he heard this weird growling hiss right next to his ear and felt hot breath on his scalp. The cat's teeth scraped his skull. He threw his hand back, trying to protect his neck, and felt those teeth close around his fingers. His brain does something strange here. Instead of collapsing in fear, he gets angry. He said there was this flash of pure, "No, man, not like this." He manages to twist just enough to get onto his back. Now he is face to face with the mountain lion. The cat is on his chest, claws raking at his ribs, trying to reposition its jaws. It is not a giant zoo lion. It is maybe the size of a big dog, but all muscle, all tendon, and built to kill things bigger than him. He does the only thing he can think of. He grabs the cat. One hand goes to its lower jaw, the other to its throat. He drives his thumbs into its neck and starts squeezing with everything he has. The cat thrashes, rips up his arms with its claws, but he holds on. He wraps his legs around its body, trying to keep it from twisting free. They roll in the dirt, locked together, this insane wrestling match of man versus cat. He can feel its claws tearing into his thighs, feel his own skin opening, but he knows if it gets loose, it will reset and go back for his throat. So he squeezes. He said the sound the cat made as it started to suffocate was one of the worst things he has ever heard, a sort of choked yowl. Its paws slowed, its claws retracted a little, foam came out of its mouth. He keeps squeezing until he is sure it is not going to get back up. Then he just lies there in the dust, bleeding and shaking, with a dead mountain lion half on top of him. At some point, the adrenaline drop hits, and he realizes his arms are shredded, his face is cut, his hands are a mess of punctures. His chest and legs are ripped up, but he is alive. He pushed back against an ambushed predator with his bare hands, and he is still breathing. When he told that story here, what stuck with me was how fast it all happened. 1 second, you are a guy out for a run thinking about your problems in your playlist. The next second, you are fighting for your life with something that evolved to kill from behind without being seen. Afterwards, he said, every rustle in the bushes sounded different. Every time he ran alone, he felt the skin between his shoulder blades itch, like his body was waiting for another hit from above. That is how deep that kind of encounter goes. It is not just scars on your skin, it is new code written into your nervous system. Now let's talk about story number 3, and this one takes us into the ocean, which is just the wildest, weirdest wilderness we have. This is a shark story. I had a former military diver on the show, guy who used to work in the water in all kinds of conditions. He was not some tourist splashing near the shore, he lived in the ocean. And one day, during a training exercise, a bull shark almost took everything from him. He is in murky water off the coast, doing a routine swim. Visibility is terrible. The water is this green-brown soup where you can barely see your own hand. That alone is creepy. Humans are visual creatures. Take away our sight and we are already half prey. He is cruising along, thinking about the mission, thinking about the clock. He knows sharks are in the area, but encounters are rare. They are trained on how to handle it, but you do not expect it to actually happen. He said the first sensation was not even pain. It was pressure. Something hit him from below and to the side with so much force that it spun him in the water. For a split second, he thought it was another diver crashing into him. Then he feels teeth close around his leg. Not a nip, a full bite. Bull sharks have this reputation for being the junkyard dogs of the sea. Stocky, aggressive, and they love dirty water. This one has latched onto him from mid-thigh down and is shaking violently, trying to tear a chunk loose. He feels bones snap in his lower leg like dry twigs. He feels flesh tear. Blood blooms in the water in this red cloud that looks almost beautiful if you forget it is you. The pain comes in as a white-hot streak that shoots right up into his skull. Training says, fight back. Go for the eyes, the gills. Do not just scream and flail. So he does it. He reaches down with both hands and grabs the shark's face. One hand jams into the gill slit, the other goes for the eye. He feels that rough sandpaper skin under his palms. The shark thrashes, trying to get a better grip, but he jams his fingers into soft tissue and squeezes. The shark lets go. He said the release was almost worse than the bite, because now there is nothing holding his shredded leg together. He can feel it flopping, almost detached. The world tilts. Orientation goes weird, up and down or just ideas. He knows he has seconds before blood loss and shock start to shut him down. So he does not panic, he swims. He kicks with his good leg and his arms, hauling himself toward the surface. Every movement sends knives of pain up his spine. He pushes through it. He is not thinking about the shark anymore. If it comes back, it comes back. His only job now is to get to air and then to a boat. He breaks the surface and sucks in a breath that feels like the first one he has ever taken. He yells for help. People haul him onto a boat. Someone slaps a tourniquet on his leg while he stares up at the sky, trying not to pass out. He survives. They save his life, but not his leg. Surgeons remove it above the knee. He wakes up in a hospital bed with one leg and a whole new understanding of what the ocean really is. When he told that story on the podcast, what struck me was what he said about going back in the water. You would think that would be it. Life on land from now on. But he eventually went back. With a prosthetic, with scars, with this memory of a bull shark trying to rip him apart, he got back into the sea. He said the first few times, every little flicker of shadow made his heart jump. Every little change in water temperature felt like a threat. But he refused to let that one moment take everything from him. That level of courage or stubbornness or maybe both is incredible. Listening to him, you realize that the sea is just another wilderness that does not care how tough you are. Sharks are not villains. They are predators doing predator things. He was in their world and he paid a price. And now, every time he steps into the water, he carries that knowledge with him like a weight and a gift at the same time. Now let's talk about story number 4, and this one is different from bears and sharks. This one is about primates. A chimpanzee. There is a story that came up on the podcast more than once about a woman who went to visit a chimp she knew. This was not a random wild animal. This was a chimpanzee she had helped raise, one she thought of almost like family. And that familiarity, that human idea of we have a relationship, crashed straight into the reality of what a chimp really is. Chimps are insanely strong. People hear that and nod, but they do not really get it. These are animals that can rip branches apart like toys, that can tear each other's arms off in fights. They are not little fuzzy humans. They are wild, even when they live in cages. On this day, she goes to see the chimp at a facility. She is bringing a cake or some kind of treat for his birthday, because that is how we think. We bring gifts, we celebrate, we project our traditions onto animals. What she does not know is that there are other chimps watching, chimps that see her as an outsider bringing resources. The attack is not a sudden moment of one animal turning on her. It is a coordinated assault. 2 other chimps get out of their area and go for her when she is near the enclosure. Chimps do not attack like cats or dogs. They do not go for the throat. They go for the face, the hands, the genitals. They go for the things that make you you. They drag her down. The first blows are with fists, like a beating. Then the biting starts. They strip flesh off her face. They tear at her fingers, ripping them off. In minutes, they rearrange her entire body. By the time caregivers and staff manage to get to her, she is barely alive. Airlift. Emergency surgery. Weeks in a hospital. Her face is gone. Literally gone. No eyes, no nose, no lips in the normal sense. Fingers turned into mangled stumps. When I talk about that story, the part that really gets me is the surgery afterward. Surgeons, over many procedures, reconstruct a face for her using tissue from other parts of her body. They give her a new nose, new lips, new eyelids. She has to relearn how to eat, how to speak, how to express anything. She went from a normal person with a job and a car and errands to someone who scares herself in the mirror. The terror in that story is not just the attack, it is the betrayal of the idea that familiarity equals safety. That because we live with animals, because we name them and feed them and love them, they will obey human rules. But they do not. Chimps live under chimp rules. Status, aggression, territorial drives, jealousy. In that moment, those chimps did not see a friend. They saw an intruder, a resource, a target. Whenever that story comes up in the studio, it is always to make the same point. Wild is wild. You can manage it, you can shape it a little, but you can never fully tame it. The moment you forget that, you make yourself vulnerable in a way that nature does not forgive. Now let's talk about story number 5, and this one is about wolves. A lot of people have this romantic idea of wolves, especially if they have only seen them in photographs or documentaries. Big, intelligent dogs in the snow. But an actual wolf pack is a serious thing, especially in deep winter when food is scarce. I had a guy on who trapped in the far north, in this big empty country where the snow goes on forever and the trees are all black and white outlines. He told me about a winter where he found himself on the wrong side of a hungry pack. He is out on a snow machine checking trap lines, cold enough that his breath freezes on his beard. The kind of cold where your machine not starting is not just annoying, it is dangerous, because everything out there wants your warmth, including the air. He notices wolf tracks crisscrossing the line more than usual. Big prints, clean in the powder, moving in that straight, purposeful way that wolves travel when they have somewhere to be. He sees where they have taken a couple of animals out of his traps, leaving only blood and fur. That is not just theft, that is a sign. It means they are working the same ground he is, and they know there is meat on his lines. On the way back to his cabin one evening, the light is fading, that blue hour where everything looks flat. He is riding along a narrow trail through trees when his machine coughs once and dies. No engine, no lights, just the instant silence of winter woods. He tries to restart it. Nothing. Something in the fuel line, something in the engine. He messes with it until his fingers are numb, cursing, but it is done. The temperature is dropping with the sun. There is no phone signal, no road, no other human for a long distance, so he does the only thing he can. He starts walking. The snow is deep. Every step is a lift and a plunge. His boots sink past the ankles. His breath comes out in big white clouds. He pulls his hood up, tightens his mittens, and moves. After a while, he realizes he is not alone. First, it is just a feeling. The hairs on the back of his neck stand up. He has that sense that something is looking at him. Then he hears it. A soft crunch of snow that is not his. Then another. Off in the trees, matching his pace. He stops. The sound stops. He starts walking again. The sound starts again. He glances to his right and sees movement. A gray shape between the tree trunks. Then another on the left. Wolves. Big northern wolves, not small dogs. They are shadowing him, one on each side, staying just far enough back that he cannot get a clear count. He keeps walking, they keep pace. He knows wolves, he respects them. He also knows that a pack in deep winter that has been stealing from his traps is not just curious. They are weighing him, they are doing the math. How tired is he? Does he look weak? Is it worth the risk? He tries not to show it, but his heart is hammering. He keeps his shoulders square, his head up, like you are supposed to do with predators. He sings a little under his breath, partly to keep his spirits up, partly to let them know he is aware of them. As the light drains out of the sky, they get bolder. He glances back and sees more of them now. Pale shapes on the trail behind him, eyes catching the last light. They are not running in close formation. They are spread out, covering angles. This is what they do when they circle something. He realizes that if he stops for too long or if he falls, they might close in, so he forces himself to keep a steady pace. Not running, not stumbling, just a determined, endless walk. His legs are starting to feel like logs. His lungs burn in the cold air. He can feel the sweat under his clothes, and he knows if he stops, that sweat will chill and the cold will grab him. Every now and then, a wolf trots up a little closer on one side, then drops back. He keeps his hand near his rifle, but he does not fire. He knows that if he shoots one, the sound and the blood might cause the others to rush in. He also knows he might miss in this light, and then he would have wasted his one big deterrent. So they walk. Hours later, the faint glow of his cabin appears through the trees, a single orange window in all that blue darkness. He has never loved anything more in his life. He can see the little wisp of smoke from the chimney. The wolves see it too. They start to peel away, one by one, ghosts dissolving back into the trees. The game is over. This prey is making it to his den. He stumbles up to his door, gets inside, slams it behind him, and leans against it, shaking. He takes off his mittens and sees his hands are white and stiff. He did not realize how cold he had gotten. He throws wood into the stove until the fire roars. He sits there in the glow, listening, half expecting to hear paws on the porch. When he told it, he said the fear was not like a jump scare. It was a slow tightening, a sense that he was being measured by other minds. Not random hunger, strategy. That is what is terrifying about wolves. They are smart, they work together, and if you are limping along a trail in their territory on a winter night, they might decide you are the easiest part of their hunting equation. Listening to him in the studio, you can almost hear those feet in the snow, feel that cold creeping up your legs. And you understand that out there, far from town and light, you are just another animal making your way through someone else's hunting ground. Now let's talk about story number 6, and this one is about an animal that looks almost cartoonish until you see what it can do up close. I am talking about a hippo. I had a safari guide in here from southern Africa, a quiet guy, not dramatic at all, which made this story even more intense. He had spent his whole adult life on rivers full of crocodiles and hippos, guiding tourists in boats, watching sunsets, pointing out birds. He was not easily rattled. But there was one night on the river that changed the way he looked at those big gray tanks forever. He starts by reminding me, hippos are responsible for a crazy number of human deaths in Africa every year. They are not cute. They are territorial landmines with teeth. During the day, they sit around looking lazy in the water, but at night, they come out to feed and they do not want anything between them and where they are going. On this particular evening, he is taking 2 other guides and some gear across a wide stretch of river in a low aluminum boat. No tourists, just staff. Late trip back to camp after dropping people off on the other side. The sun has already gone down. The world has turned that deep purple that happens right before real darkness. The water is calm, only a little chop, and the jungle on either bank is just a black wall. They have a small motor, nothing powerful, just enough to push them across. They are halfway when he feels this weird vibration come up through the hull. Not a log, not a rock, something alive. He kills the engine, and everyone goes quiet. The night closes in around them. The sounds of insects and frogs, the distant call of something in the trees, and then, directly under the boat, he hears that deep, bubbling exhale that hippos make, like a giant boiling kettle. He realizes they are right over a hippo. He whispers, "Do not move." But before the words are even out of his mouth, the river explodes. The hippo comes straight up from under them, massive head and back smashing into the bottom of the boat. The hull folds like an aluminum can. Metal squeals. The whole boat is launched into the air and flipped. He hits the water hard, shoulder first. It shocks the air right out of his lungs. For a second, he is under, twisted in the dark, tangled in gear and rope, and the body of one of his friends who landed on top of him. The river is not clear. It is this brown, swirling mess. He has no idea which way is up. His brain is screaming that there is a hippo right here, a very angry one. He manages to kick free and break the surface. He gasps in air and river water at the same time, coughing. The overturned boat is a dark shape nearby. One of his friends is already climbing onto it, bleeding from the head. The other is thrashing in the water a few meters away, yelling. Then the hippo comes back. All he sees is the front of it at first. That enormous blunt head, eyes and ears sticking up, charging through the water like a living boulder. The mouth opens and it is like a nightmare. Those tusks are not little white cartoon things. They are long, yellow, stained from grass and mud and whatever else, and they are attached to jaws that can crush bone like dry bread. The animal goes straight for the man who is still in the water. He hears the impact. Flesh, bone, teeth, water. The hippo bites down on the man's torso and lifts him partly out of the river. There is this horrible, sudden silence from the guy who is just screaming. The hippo shakes him side to side like a rag. The guide is frozen for a second, stuck between wanting to help his friend and knowing he's outmatched in every possible way. He scrambles onto the upside-down hull, dragging himself across the slick metal. His other friend pulls him up with shaking hands. They do not have rifles with them. This is just a transfer trip, not a full safari. No one expected a fight. The hippo lets go and disappears under the surface again, taking the injured man down with it. The guide told me that is the image that wakes him up sometimes. The legs of his friend being pulled under, kicking once, and then vanishing into the dark. For a few long seconds, there is nothing but waves and bubbles where they went down. Then, somehow, the man comes up again, further away, on his back, moaning. The hippo surfaces a little distance beyond him, circles, snorts, like it is deciding whether to go back in. The guide does not even remember making the decision. He just remembers being in the water again. He told me, I knew if I left him, he was dead. And if I went, maybe we both were. But I could not sit on that boat and watch him drown. He swims like he has never swum in his life. Every cell in his body is screaming to get out of the water, but he pushes toward his friend. The river feels thick, like it does not want to let him through. The injured man is conscious but barely. His shirt is red and shredded. You can see bone through torn flesh along his ribs. He grabs him by the back of the jacket and starts hauling him toward the capsized boat. The whole time, he is expecting the river to erupt again beneath them. He keeps glancing over his shoulder and sees the hippo's eyes just above the surface, watching them. It follows, not charging this time, just gliding along behind, 15 or 20 meters back, like a submarine shadow. He gets to the boat, his arms burning, and with his other friend they drag the bleeding man across the hull. The injured guy screams once when his ribs scrape the metal, and the sound echoes out across the water. The hippo dives. He feels it more than he sees it. The water sucks inward a little bit, like something big just pulled it down. They all freeze. The animal never hits them again. Maybe it is satisfied with the damage it has already done. Maybe the noise from the camp on shore, which has now noticed the commotion and is starting to shine lights and fire warning shots into the air, spooks it. Whatever the reason, it disappears. They spend the longest 15 minutes of their lives lying on that upside-down boat, bleeding and shivering and watching the ripples until another boat arrives and pulls them aboard. The injured man lives. Barely. He ends up with huge scars, months in the hospital, a body that never quite works the same again. But he is alive. When the guy told me this story, he said what really stuck with him was the speed. 1 second they are just 3 guys crossing a calm river. The next second their world is inside a hippo's decision. No warning, no time to get ready. And now, whenever he sees tourists lean a little too far over the edge of the boat, pointing cameras at hippos and laughing, he gets this cold flash in his chest. Because he knows that what looks like a lazy blob in the water is actually one of the fastest, most territorial killers on land. Now let's talk about story number 7, and this one is about a different kind of prehistoric monster, a crocodile. I had a man on who had been attacked by a crocodile in a river that cuts through thick brush and farmland. He was not a thrill seeker. He was a regular guy who fished and worked and had a family. That day he walked down to the water like he had done 100 times, and the river decided to show him what was really living under the surface. He was standing on this muddy bank, fishing with a simple rod and line. The sun was high, hot, making the water look brown and lazy. There were reeds and overhanging branches, dragonflies skimming the surface. He had his shoes off, toes in the mud, half thinking about the fish, half thinking about bills and work. There was no dramatic buildup, no hint of eyes on the surface, no ripples. Crocodiles are ambush predators, and they are very good at it. He said the first sign was the mud under his feet shifting, then a shadow, then pain. The croc came up from right at the edge, out of water that was barely knee-deep, jaws wide. It clamped down, not on his foot like he always imagined, but higher, around his lower leg and part of his knee. It was not a clean pain at first. It was like every nerve fired at once. Pressure, tearing, shock. He did not even have time to yell before he was yanked off his feet and into the river. People talk about the strength of crocodiles and alligators, but until you hear someone describe being in that grip, you do not really understand. He said it felt like his leg was not part of him anymore. The animal started the death roll, twisting its whole body, and he felt his bones grinding inside his skin. Water rushed into his nose and mouth. The world turned into spinning bubbles and shadows. Up and down disappeared. He could feel weeds wrapping around him, mud billowing up. Some very old part of his brain threw up one idea: go for the eyes. He is underwater, in pain, with his leg in a reptile's mouth, and he still manages to reach down and feel along the rough, armored head. Crocodile skin is like rock and sandpaper welded together. He slides his hand over the bony ridge of the eye socket and jams his thumb into the eye as hard as he can. The crocodile lets go. Not completely. It loosens its grip enough that he can wrench his leg free. He feels skin tear, hears a muffled crack that might be bone, and suddenly he is not in its jaws anymore. He kicks upward with his good leg, lungs burning. He breaks the surface, coughing and choking, snorting water out of his nose. The bank is only a few meters away, but it looks like the far side of the world. He swims. Every stroke feels wrong. His injured leg is just hanging there, useless, sending pulses of agony through him with every movement. He half expects to feel jaws close on him again at any second. He reaches the bank and claws at the mud, dragging himself up onto solid ground. Waves slap at his boots, mud smears his hands. He tries to stand, and his leg folds under him like wet cardboard. People have heard the splash. Friends from nearby come running. One of them said later that the sight of his leg made them think he was done. The skin was shredded, white bone visible through red and purple flesh, muscle hanging in strips. But he is conscious, he is breathing, and he is very much not ready to die. They make a tourniquet out of a belt and a piece of cloth, tie it high on his thigh to slow the bleeding. They carry him to a truck. Every bump on that rough road sends lightning bolts of pain through him. He remembers looking out the window at the sky and thinking, that river used to be my friend. Now I know what is in it. In the hospital, surgeons save his life, but his leg is a different story. He ends up with it heavily reconstructed, metal and screws holding things together. He walks with a limp now. He cannot kneel the way he used to. If he sits too long, everything aches. On the podcast, what really struck me was his relationship with that river afterwards. He said for a long time he could not even look at it. Just driving over a bridge gave him sweaty palms. But he also said he missed it. It was part of his life, part of his identity. Years later, he went back. Not to fish right at the same spot, not to wade in and pretend nothing happened. He stood on the bank, a long way from the water, and just watched. He said it was like visiting someone who had hurt you. You are not there to forgive them, exactly. You are there to acknowledge that they are still what they are. Crocodiles do not hate you. They do not care about you. They are perfect, patient ambush machines honed over millions of years, and if your leg happens to land in front of their mouths, they will treat it exactly like any other chunk of meat. If you hang around hunters who spend time in Africa, you hear the same phrase over and over about these animals. They call them Black Death. They are big, they are moody, and when you wound one, it can turn into a thinking, stalking problem in the brush. He told me about a buffalo hunt that almost ended very badly for everybody involved. They are in thick mopane bush, hot day, red dust, gnats in the air, sweat running down their backs under the rifles and packs. The client is an experienced hunter, not brand new, but he is not from there. He is not used to how quickly things can get serious. They stalk a herd for hours, wind in their faces, moving slowly between thorn trees. Buffaloes are big, like living armored trucks, but in thick brush they can be surprisingly hard to see. You hear them, smell them, feel them in the ground before you lay eyes on them. Finally they get a chance. A big old bull steps out into a small opening, broadside. The client settles his rifle on shooting sticks, heart pounding, sweat making his grip slick. The professional hunter whispers, "Wait, wait, now, take him on the shoulder." The rifle goes off. The bull flinches, stumbles, then wheels and charges into the brush. The rest of the herd thunders away in a cloud of dust and noise. The professional hunter knows the shot was not perfect. He also knows that now they have a wounded buffalo in there somewhere. That is not an animal you simply walk away from. You have to find it and finish it, or it might find you. They wait a few minutes to let the dust settle, then start tracking. There is blood on the ground, dark and thick, sprayed on leaves at chest height. They move slowly, rifles up, every sense on high alert. The bush feels tighter. Sounds are sharper. A bird call makes everyone jump. They follow the blood for 200 meters, then 300, then 4. It pools in places, then thins out. The tracks wander, then straighten. The bull is hurt, but he is not going down easily. At one point, the tracker stops and raises his hand. He has seen something. Broken branches ahead, a patch of shadow that does not look like the others. The professional hunter lifts his binoculars. Through a tangle of leaves, he can just make out the curve of a horn, the dark shine of an eye. The buffalo is not lying down dying, he is lying in ambush. The animal has circled back and bedded in thick stuff, facing his own back trail. He is waiting for whatever hurt him to come walking up the blood path. The professional hunter realizes they are already too close, less than 20 meters. That is nothing to a buffalo. He whispers to the client, "Do not move." When he stands, shoot the front of his chest. He explodes out of the brush with a bellow that sounds like a drum being torn in half. In that second, everything compresses. There is a ton of angry muscle coming at them, horns low, hooves digging divots in the dirt. The ground shakes, the client freezes, the professional hunter does not. He yells to snap the client out of it, swings his own rifle up, but he knows the client has the first and best angle. To his credit, the man snaps awake and fires. The bullet hits, but the bull does not drop. The impact knocks him slightly to the side, but the charge continues. The professional hunter fires his big rifle, a massive caliber intended for exactly this situation. The bullet hits the buffalo at close range, slamming through bone and muscle. The animal lunges another couple steps, mere meters away now, so close they can smell the hot, grassy breath, then finally crashes down in a cloud of dust. Silence. They are staring at this huge black wall of animal lying on the ground a few strides away, horns still sharp, eyes already glazing. Then the adrenaline floods in. The client shakes so badly he can barely work the bolt on his rifle to make it safe. He keeps saying, "I could not move. I could not move." The tracker, who has seen this kind of thing before, just smiles and lights a cigarette, but his hands are not quite steady either. When they walk up to the bull, they can see where it was lying, the little nest it made in the scrub to wait. There are scuffed marks in the dirt where its hooves dug in for that launch. It knew exactly what it was doing. On the podcast, the professional hunter said that after something like that, you do not feel like a hero. You feel small. You realize that even with all your skill, all your gear, you were one bad second away from getting tossed into the air like a rag doll and gored. Cape buffalo are not out there hunting humans for fun. They are just intense about defending themselves and their herd. But when you are in front of one that is wounded and angry, and it is coming through the brush like a freight train, you are not thinking about biology. You are thinking about how much it will hurt if you get it wrong. Now let's talk about story number 9, and this one is about animals that are much smaller and much more common, but in a pack, they can be absolutely terrifying. Wild dogs. A lot of people think of dogs as pets, because that is how most of us encounter them. Soft ears, wagging tails, sleeping on couches. But take that same species, remove a few generations of human rules, and put them in a group in a place where food is scarce, and they become something very different. The man who told me this story grew up in a rural area where there were always loose dogs running around. Some were owned by people in nearby villages, some were strays, some were the offspring of strays. Over time, they formed packs. He is a teenager in this story, walking home at dusk along a dirt road that cuts through fields and scrub. The sun is low, the air cooling. He is carrying a small backpack. Nothing dramatic. He has done this walk 100 times. He hears barking in the distance. Not the playful bark of a dog greeting someone, but that sharp, high, repetitive bark that says excitement and agitation. He glances back and sees a group of dogs on the road behind him, maybe 50 meters away. At first, he does not worry. He knows most of these dogs individually. He recognizes a couple from nearby farms. But as he is walking, he notices more joining. 2 from one side path, 3 from another, like little streams feeding a river. The barking changes. It becomes more focused, aimed in one direction, at him. He realizes the pack is not just moving in the same direction as him, it is following him. He speeds up a little. So do they. The hair on his arm stands up. He glances to the sides of the road. On one side, a barbed wire fence around a field. On the other, a steep drainage ditch and thick brush. He decides he should not run. He has heard you should not run from dogs, that it triggers a chase reflex. So he tries to walk with purpose, pretending he is not scared, even though his heart is thudding. The dogs close the distance anyway. Soon he can hear their nails clicking on the packed dirt, hear the panting. He looks back and sees a knot of bodies, tongues out, ears forward. Some tails are up, some are low, some are wagging in the strange, tense way. These are not happy wagging tails. These are aroused, excited animals trying to decide what to do. One of the larger dogs, a big yellow one with scars around its muzzle, trots ahead of the others, shoulders low, eyes fixed on him. It comes up along his left side, just out of arm's reach, and does that sideways trot that dogs do when they are trying to flank. He knows if he shows fear but has no plan, he is done. He stops and turns to face them. For a second, the whole pack kind of bunches up surprised. He yells loud from his gut. He throws his arms up, makes himself look bigger, and takes a step toward the closest dogs. Some hang back, some do not. The big yellow one darts in. Not a full charge, more like a test. It snaps at the air near his thigh, barking. Another smaller one darts toward his other leg. He swings his backpack like a club, smacking the yellow dog in the face. It yelps and jumps back, but it does not run away. Its lips peel back in a snarl. He realizes he cannot stay in the open road. He needs a physical barrier. On his right is that drainage ditch, deep, steep-sided, filled with dead grass and some trash. Not exactly inviting, but it is something. He backs toward it slowly, never taking his eyes off the dogs. They spread out in a rough semicircle in front of him, moving as a group. As he reaches the edge of the ditch, his heel slips on loose dirt. He almost falls backward. The whole pack surges forward a few steps, sensing the vulnerability. He drops into the ditch on purpose. It is deeper than he thought, up to his chest. The sides are crumbling dirt and roots. The dogs crowd the edge above him, barking, snapping, sending little showers of soil down. A couple jump in and slide down the slope toward him, nails scrabbling. Now the space that was open becomes a funnel. One dog lunges at him. He kicks out with his boot, hard, catching it in the ribs. It slams into the side of the ditch, whimpers, and scrambles out. That gives the others a pause. They do not like the slippery footing. They do not like being below him in this narrow space. He grabs a broken branch from the bottom of the ditch and uses it like a spear, jabbing at noses that get too close. He is shouting constantly now, words, curses, anything to sound big and loud. His voice cracks. His throat hurts. He keeps going. After what feels like a long time, the pack loses focus. One dog gets bored and trots away. Another follows. A third chases the second. Without that tight pack energy, the aggression diffuses. The big yellow one glares at him for a few more seconds, barking a few last times, then turns and trots after the others. Suddenly, he is alone in the ditch, shaking, muddy, throat raw. He waits a long time before climbing out. When he finally does, he looks up and down the road. No dogs. Just that quiet evening light again, like nothing happened. When he told me that in the studio, he said the thing that scared him most afterward was how ordinary the pack looked at first. These were not wolves in some distant wilderness. These were dogs he had seen around for years. Some of them probably let kids pet them during the day. But under the right conditions, when their group mind kicks in and a target appears at the wrong moment, they turn into something else, something wild, something that remembers it has teeth. Now, let's talk about story number 10, and this one is about an animal that does not roar or bare its teeth when it wants to kill you. It just bites once and then lets chemistry do the rest. A snake. The man who told me this story was a hiker and amateur herpetologist. He loved reptiles, knew all the Latin names, all the behaviors. He was careful, respectful, all that. But sometimes all the knowledge in the world does not matter if the timing is bad. He was hiking in dry country, somewhere with rocks and scrub and little washes that carry water during the rainy season. It was late afternoon, hot but starting to cool. Perfect snake time. The heat of the day coming out of the rocks, lizards scurrying, rodents moving. He knew that. He was watching his step. He even had snake gaiters on his lower legs, those stiff guards that bites often cannot get through. He had seen rattlesnakes before and always given them plenty of distance. He came up to a small rocky outcrop, nothing dramatic, just a pile of stones at the edge of the trail. He stepped up onto one flat rock to get a better view of the valley. He said he never saw the snake. No rattle, no warning. Just a sharp, quick sting on his ankle, like someone flicked him with a hot wire. He hopped back, startled, and looked down. There, half coiled under the lip of the rock, was a big rattlesnake. Older animal, duller colors, thick body. He had stepped close enough that his gator left a small gap and the snake had taken the shot. 2 puncture marks, small drops of blood welling up. The skin around them already starting to feel warm. He knew enough to know this was bad. He was a couple of hours from the trailhead. There was no cell service. He had a basic first aid kit, but nothing like anti-venom. He knew that old advice about cutting and sucking is useless and dangerous, so he did the one real thing you can do. He stayed calm and started moving toward help. The priority is slowing the spread of venom and keeping your heart from racing. He forced himself to breathe slowly, even though his pulse was pounding in his ears. He did not run. He walked, steady, using his poles to take weight off the injured leg. Within 15 minutes, his ankle started to throb, a deep, pulsing pain that felt like it was inside the bone. The skin around the bite turned red, then purple. It started to swell, pushing against the gator, which he loosened carefully so it would not cut off circulation completely. As he walked, the pain climbed. His calf started to ache. His knee felt like it was full of hot sand. Each step sent a jolt of agony up his leg. He began to feel nauseous. His mouth went dry. The world narrowed down to the trail in front of him and the need to keep putting one foot in front of the other. He talked about how his mind tried to play tricks on him. Part of him kept saying, "Just lie down and rest for a bit. It will feel better." He knew that was the venom and the shock talking. If he lay down alone out there feeling sleepy, that might be the last choice he ever made. So he kept walking. By the time he reached the parking area, his lower leg looked like it belonged to someone else. Swollen, discolored, shiny. Every pulse felt like someone pounding a hammer into his flesh. He was sweating and shaking. He was lucky. Another hiker had just pulled up in a car. They took one look at his leg, loaded him in, and drove him straight toward the nearest hospital, calling ahead from a spot that actually had reception. In the emergency room, the staff moved fast. They marked the edge of the swelling with a pen and watched it creep up his leg. They started anti-venom. They put in lines, monitors, pain medication. He said the pain was unlike anything he had ever felt. The venom was basically trying to digest his tissue from the inside. It felt burning and crushing and deep all at once. He drifted in and out for hours. He did not lose the leg. Modern anti-venom and quick action saved it. But he did lose some muscle. He had physical therapy to rebuild strength. His ankle will probably never be the same. When he talked about it with me, what hit me was that he was not angry at the snake. He was angry at himself. Not for making some huge mistake, but for that one small thing. The one step onto that rock without checking under the lip. Snakes are not out there hunting hikers. They are trying to survive, to regulate temperature, to eat. That snake did what it was wired to do when something heavy stepped near its hiding place. It defended itself. But to a human being, that one defensive bite can mean days in the hospital, thousands of dollars in bills, months of recovery, maybe permanent damage. Listening to him, you start to feel that weird mix these animal attack stories always bring. Fear, respect, horror, and this strange kind of awe. Because at the end of the day, all of these animals, from the hippo to the snake, are just doing their thing. We are the ones who forget what they are capable of. Now let's talk about story number 11. This one is another ocean story, and it is one that still gives me a weird feeling anytime I look down into deep water. When surfer Shane Dorian was on the podcast, he talked about this great white shark encounter his friend had, and the way he described it, you can almost feel the water around your own legs getting colder as you listen. So imagine this. You are a serious surfer. You are not some holiday person splashing in the shore break. You chase heavy waves, you travel, you watch tide charts and swells like other people watch stock prices. You and your buddy go to South Africa, to one of those famous reef breaks where the waves are powerful and the lineup sits just off this deep, dark channel that might as well have a sign over it saying Shark Highway. It is early morning. The sun is just clearing the horizon, turning the whole ocean silver and gold. There is a mild offshore breeze. The waves are clean, lined up, maybe head high, just enough power to make it fun. You paddle out with your friend, laughing, talking between sets, feeling that combination of freedom and focus you only get sitting on a board in the open ocean. Shane said his friend was sitting a little farther inside when it happened. There was no music, no dramatic buildup, no fin slicing the surface like a movie, just surfers sitting, watching the horizon, waiting for the next set. Then the water right next to his buddy turns a different color. Not red, just this weird, darker shape under the surface, like a shadow that is moving the wrong way. Before anyone can even say, "Did you see that?" the great white comes straight up from underneath. People think of sharks as these sleek, fast, torpedo-looking things. Up close, a big great white looks more like a submarine with a mouth. Thick, heavy, built like a mussel with teeth attached. This one comes up under the surfboard so hard that it launches both board and surfer out of the water. Shane's friend said the first thing he felt was not teeth. It was just raw force, like getting hit in the legs with a concrete wall moving at full speed. The board snaps with this loud crack. Pieces go flying. He is airborne for a second, half out of the water, and in that moment he sees the shark. It is right there. Big head, little black eyes, mouth open just enough that he can see rows of teeth. The shark is coming up in that slow motion way big things have when they move fast. The water is boiling around it. By some insane stroke of luck, most of those teeth bite into foam instead of flesh. The shark clamps down on the middle of the board, takes a giant bite, and for a second it is just holding this bright-colored chunk of fiberglass sideways in its mouth like a dog with a toy. The surfer hits the water screaming, kicking without even thinking about it, pure instinct. Everyone in the lineup hears the shout and looks over. They see the fin now, the thrash, the broken board. All that calm, beautiful morning energy vanishes. The shark shakes the board once, realizes this thing is not meat, and lets it go. Then it rolls a little and slips back down into the green. It does not have to be dramatic. It owns this place. It comes and goes when it feels like it. Meanwhile, Shane's friend is in the impact zone with no real board under him, just a jagged half floating beside him. He paddles like a man whose whole life is in his arms, hauling himself up onto that piece of foam, chest pressed flat, legs curled up like he is afraid that if he lets them dangle the ocean, will just bite them off. The guys farther outside start yelling, "Paddle in, paddle in, paddle in," and you can feel the way panic spreads across water. Everyone who is sitting on a board suddenly feels like bait. They are looking down between their legs like, what is under me right now? He paddles for shore on half a board, glancing back over his shoulder every few seconds, expecting to see a dark shape behind him. Every little bit of kelp, every patch of shadow feels like it might suddenly rise into a mouth. When he finally hits shallow water, he does not glide in cool, he does not ride the last wave, he bails early, jumps off, and runs. Board half under his arm, leash dragging, heart hammering, he stands on the sand shaking, looking at the chunk taken out of his board and thinking, that was supposed to be part of my leg. Shane said that afterwards, his friend's relationship with the ocean changed. He kept surfing because that is who he is, but that easy trust was gone. Some days he would be out there and everything would feel fine. Other days he would paddle out, look down into that deep blue nothing, and his chest would tighten. He would remember the feeling of raw power coming up from underneath him. He would remember that a mouth big enough to fit his torso had once chosen foam instead of him. Listening to that story in the studio, you realize how wild it is that humans play in that space at all. We are little soft animals sitting on pieces of foam over a world full of teeth, pretending everything is chill, and most of the time, it is. But every once in a while, the landlord comes up to check on the tenants, and you get a reminder that the ocean is not a theme park. It is a hunting ground. Now let's talk about story number 12. This one is about a different ocean predator, and it is maybe even weirder because this animal is so smart. We are talking about orcas attacking boats. When Brian Simpson was on the podcast, we got into those news stories about killer whales ramming sailboats and chewing off their rudders, and there is one story in particular that feels like a horror movie if you imagine yourself there. Picture a couple on a long sailing trip, not around the world, but a serious voyage. They have a stout sailboat, not a fancy yacht, just a solid fiberglass hull, a strong keel, a rudder, and enough food and water to be out there for weeks. They know what they are doing. They have crossed open water before. They trust their boat. They are off the coast of Spain or Portugal, somewhere in that zone where those orca encounters were happening. It is early morning. The sea is a weird mix of calm swells and low wind. Gray sky, gray water, mist in the distance. They are on autopilot, cruising along at a lazy pace, drinking coffee in the cockpit, chatting about their next port. Then the boat shudders in a way that does not match the motion of the waves. Anyone who has spent time on a boat knows the feel of normal impacts. A little slap of water on the bow, the slow rise and fall with the swell. This is different. This is a thump that comes from underneath and behind, like something solid just hit the bottom. They look at each other. Maybe it is a floating log, they think. Maybe some debris. They check the depth sounder. It still shows deep water. No reef, no sandbar. Then comes a second hit, harder. The whole stern lifts and twists. Cups rattle. The autopilot kicks itself off with a beep as the rudder gets slammed sideways. The woman grabs the wheel. The man leans over the transom to look. The water behind the boat is foaming white, and then he sees it. A black and white shape, enormous, sliding just under the surface. A dorsal fin that looks like a piece of wet obsidian taller than a person. An orca right under their rudder, rolling just enough that one eye can look up at the boat like it is inspecting a toy. Before he can even shout a full sentence, the orca rams the rudder again. The impact comes up through the wheel into his hands. Fiberglass flexes. Bolts creak. That part of the boat, the part that steers, is suddenly not a solid thing anymore. It is a vulnerable limb. A second orca appears on the other side, smaller, maybe a younger animal. It swims up and nudges the hull almost playfully. Then it, too, takes a shot at the stern. They realize they are being targeted. Not random bumps, focused hits. The woman is on the radio now, voice tight, sending out a call, giving their coordinates, saying the words orcas hitting the boat in this disbelieving tone, because it sounds crazy even as it is happening. Another slam. The rudder jerks. Then there is a new noise, a grinding, snapping sound from down below, somewhere beneath the cockpit. That is maybe the worst feeling a sailor can have. No resistance, no connection. The part that tells the boat where to go is no longer listening. They are still afloat, the sails are up, but they cannot steer. The orcas keep circling. Sometimes they surface near the bow, blowing, looking almost relaxed. Then they slip back to the stern and ram the useless rudder again, like they are finishing a job. The couple realizes they need to treat this like a slow-motion emergency. They drop the sails to keep from being pushed in some uncontrolled direction. They prepare their life raft. They stuff important things into a grab bag, passports, a little food, water, a radio. All the while they are listening for the sound of water pouring in. Down below they find a trickle. Not a huge hole, but damage around the rudder post where it comes into the hull. They start pumping, eyes flicking to the bilge to make sure the level is not rising. For a while, it is a stalemate. The orcas harass them, hitting and retreating, like kids testing the limits of a toy. The couple patch and pump and talk to each other in short, tight sentences, trying not to let their voices shake. Eventually, maybe bored, maybe satisfied, the orcas move off. They melt back into the gray like they were never there. But now the couple is alone on a drifting, partly damaged boat with no steering and open water. They rig an emergency system using lines tied to the sails and whatever they can jury-rig to drag behind the boat like a sea anchor to influence direction. It is slow, ugly, exhausting work, but little by little they coax the crippled vessel toward the shipping lane where rescue is more likely. When another vessel finally reaches them and throws a line over, the captain looks at their stern and just whistles. The rudder is wrecked. Chunks taken out, the post bent. It looks like somebody took a giant metal pipe and tried to twist it off. Later, when they are safe in a harbor, warm and dry, the couple talks about how that felt. Knowing there was something under the water that apparently decided to dismantle their ship, piece by piece, with a kind of deliberate curiosity, not frenzy, focus. That is what makes orcas scary in a different way. They are not mindless. They are incredibly intelligent. They can learn from each other. They can decide to try a new game called Let Us Break the Thing that carries the humans. And if you happen to be the human on that thing, all your experience and charts and gear suddenly feel very small compared to a mind the size of a living torpedo that is just bored and strong and experimenting. Now let's talk about story number 13. This one is back on land, and it is about an animal that looks like a farm joke until it is charging you in the dark. A wild boar. When bow hunter Adam Greentree was on the show, he talked about a wild hog encounter that almost cut him in half, and the way he told it, you could feel those tusks in your imagination. Wild pigs are everywhere now. In places like Texas, they are in the suburbs, tearing up lawns, smashing through fences. They look clumsy and kind of funny on video, but they are fast, tough, and they have blades sticking out of their mouths. Adam is hunting pigs in thick scrub, somewhere remote, far from any city lights. It is that time of evening when shapes lose their sharp edges, when shadows under trees stretch and merge into one dark mass. He is moving slowly, bow in hand, listening more than he is looking. He hears them before he sees them. Snuffling, grunting, the sound of hooves rooting around in leaf litter. A small group feeding, unaware that a guy from another continent is sliding through the brush nearby. He gets eyes on a big boar. Old male, scarred ears, broad shoulders, neck like a stump, tusks curling up out of his jaw, yellow and sharp. This is not Babe the pig, this is an armored tank wrapped in bristles. Adam sets up for a shot. He ranges the distance, slows his breathing, draws his bow. This is the moment he lives for. That quiet line between predator and prey, everything narrowed down to one arrow and one spot behind the shoulder. He releases. The string snaps forward. The arrow flies. He hits the hog, but not perfectly. The boar screams this high, weird, almost human sound and whirls. Instead of bolting away, it spins toward the source of its pain, toward Adam. Now you have a wounded, angry, heavily muscled animal with knives on its face charging through the brush at a man who is holding a stick. He barely has time to drop the bow and grab the knife on his belt before the boar is on him. It hits him low, ramming its head into his thigh, trying to get those tusks up into his groin and belly. That is what they do. They slash upward. They are trying to spill you open. He feels one tusk slice along his leg, cutting through fabric into flesh. Heat and wetness spill down his calf. He stumbles back, trips over a root, and goes down on his back. The boar comes again. He can see its tiny, dark eyes, the foam at the corners of its mouth, the way its chest heaves. All the weight of that body is coming straight for the center of him. He jams his boots up, catches it in the chest, and shoves, buying himself a second. He uses that second to get the knife into position. The next time the boar comes in, he does not go for a big dramatic stab. He just aims for the neck and pushes, letting the animal's own momentum drive it deeper. The impact nearly knocks the wind out of him. The boar is on top of him now, thrashing, hot blood spraying out, hooves tearing up the ground around his shoulders. He hangs on, he keeps that blade locked in place, feels it grinding against bone, feels the twitching slow. The sound the boar makes as it dies is a guttural, deep, bubbling groan that seems to come from some prehistoric place. Then it goes still. He pushes it off with a grunt of effort. It is heavy, dense like a sack full of wet sand. He rolls away, sits there in the dirt, heart hammering, hands shaking, knife dripping red. Only then does he really feel his own wounds. The cut on his leg is long and deep, a clean slash that could easily have been a lot worse if the tusks had come in a little higher. There are bruises on his hips and ribs from where the boar slammed into him. His clothes are torn. When he told that story, he talked about how humbled he felt. He was the guy with the weapon, with the plan, with the skill. But in a heartbeat, all that shifted. He went from hunter to nearly being a body in the brush because an animal with a brain the size of a fist decided to come straight at him instead of running away. After that, he said, every time he stepped into pig country, he treated those little dark shadows with the same respect you would give a bear. Because a feral hog does not have to be graceful or clever to ruin your whole life. It just has to get lucky once with those tusks. Now let's talk about story number 14. This one takes us to the ice. Not the cute seal on a floe type of ice. The brutal polar world where the top predator is a white bear that does not run away from anything. I have talked on other shows and on my own about this polar bear story, about a group of explorers whose boat was damaged, who wound up stranded on a floating sheet of ice, and about what came walking out of the white toward them. Imagine it. You are part of a small expedition in the far north. You are in a cold place that does not care if you live or die. Your boat develops a leak. Not a little drip you can fix with tape, a real problem, hull damaged, pumps losing ground. The captain makes the call that nobody wants to hear, abandon to the ice. You get as much gear as you can onto this flat, broken slab of sea ice next to the boat. Tents, food, radios, some weapons, survival suits. The plan is to wait there until rescue can arrive. Hours, maybe longer. The boat slowly settles lower in the water beside you, creaking like a dying animal. It is freezing. Wind is cutting across the ice. The horizon in every direction is just white and gray. No trees, no rocks, no solid land. You are standing on a temporary platform floating over black water that is unimaginably cold. If you fall in, you die fast. You huddle, You set up a tent, you try to make some kind of camp, trying to believe that the radio call you sent will bring help in time. Then somebody sees movement. At first, it's just a dot on the horizon, then a shape. Then, as it gets closer, you see that long, loping stride, the low head, the powerful shoulders, a polar bear walking straight toward you across the ice. Here is the thing about polar bears. They are not like grizzlies that sometimes bluff charge or might swat you around to neutralize a threat. Polar bears are almost entirely carnivorous. Out there, on the ice, you are not an intruder near their cubs. You are meat. They are hungry. They will eat you while you are still moving. The bear keeps coming. It is huge, easily taller than a person on its hind legs, with paws the size of dinner plates and claws like black hooks. Its fur is not fluffy, it is matted from seawater and ice, yellowed in places. Its nose, black and wet, is constantly testing the air. The explorers gather up, shouting, waving their arms, trying to look big. Someone fires a flare, hoping the bright streak in the hiss will scare it. The flare arcs, falls, fizzles on the ice. The bear does not care. It circles. It is not in a rush. It has done this before. It knows that the weird upright animals with colorful clothing are slow on this surface. It knows they do not have anywhere to run to. At some point, it charges. It moves faster than your brain wants to accept, covering the distance in a few powerful bounds. One moment, it is 20 meters away. The next, it is right there, swinging a paw, snapping its jaws. One of the people goes down. The bear is on them in an instant, biting, clawing, doing what bears do to prey. The others are screaming, firing rifles. Some shots miss, some hit. The bear is enormous and full of adrenaline and wild hunger. It takes more than one bullet to convince it to stop what it is doing. The scene is chaos. Blood on snow, shouting, gunshots echoing across empty ice, someone dying while their friends try to drive off a predator that is, by design, the final word out there. Even after the bear is finally driven away or killed, the trauma stays. The survivors have to stay on that same ice, with the same wind, waiting for rescue, with the body of their friend and the knowledge that another white shape could appear on the horizon at any time. When I talk about that story, what hits me is how different polar bears are from the cartoon image. There is no soft music, no cuddly creature sliding on its belly like some holiday commercial. There is just a massive, starving animal walking across an endless white desert toward the only source of calories it can see. And you realize, listening to that there are places on Earth where the food chain is not a metaphor. You are not visiting. You are not camping. You are being evaluated as fuel. Now let's talk about story number 15. For the last one, we are back with bears again, because it always seems to come back to bears. I have talked on other shows about a story Steve Rinella told, about hunting on an island in Alaska where the biggest brown bears in the world live, and about how those bears reminded everyone there who really owns the meat on the ground. So imagine a group of hardcore hunters on this place called a Fognak, or one of those big bear islands off Alaska. Wet, cold, foggy, full of dark timber and soaked moss. Everything smells like salt, spruce, and rot. The kind of place where every snapped twig echoes. They go in after elk. It is not an easy hunt. Steep slopes, thick brush, fog that rolls in and erases entire valleys. They work hard, they glass for hours, they climb ridges that leave their legs shaking. Finally, they get a chance. One of them makes a good shot on a big bull elk. The animal goes down in a tangle of alders. They are exhausted and thrilled. This is months of meat lying there on the hillside, wrapped in hide. They field dress it as best they can in the failing light, but it is late and the terrain is brutal. They decide to leave the quarters there, hanging in the cool air, and return at first light to pack it out. This is a normal thing in a lot of mountain hunts. You leave meat, you come back. But on an island crawling with giant brown bears, you are making a gamble. You are saying, we will come back. And hopefully the original owner of this land has not claimed the body. They hike back to camp in the dark, talking quietly, a little uneasy, but mostly just tired. They make a fire, eat a simple meal, crawl into their tents, listening to the wind in the trees and the sound of distant waves. In the morning, they wake up, drink coffee, laugh, plan the pack out. They shoulder their gear and start hiking back toward the kill site. It is foggy, that wet gray curtain that hangs in the trees and beads on your eyelashes. Sound is muffled. Visibility is bad. They are following their own tracks from the day before. As they get closer, they notice something. Big tracks crossing their trail, wider, deeper, with claw marks, bear prints, fresh. They also notice something else. Piles of bear scat on the way, full of hair and bits of meat. The smart thing would be to stop and really think about this, maybe circle wide, maybe approach from downwind very carefully. They talk about it, but they are also thinking about their elk. All that work, all that meat. They keep going. They reach the general area of the kill, and something feels off. The forest is quiet in a strange way. No birds. The fog seems thicker somehow. One of them says, "Let us sit down, have a quick bite, then we will get to work." So they drop their packs, sit near their little temporary camp, unwrap some food. They are tired, a little casual now, thinking the hard part is over. Then they hear a sound. It is not a roar. It is a kind of heavy whooshing and crashing, like something big is pushing through the alders fast. They look up, and what they see does not seem real at first. A massive brown bear is coming through their camp at full speed, not walking, not curious, running. Head low, ears back, shoulders rolling under a shaggy coat that is still flecked with bits of hair and blood from whatever it has been eating. Maybe their elk, maybe something else. Steve describes it as a giant beast, and that is not exaggeration. These island bears can stand taller than a basketball hoop when they rear up. On all fours, they are still giants, with paws that hit the ground like someone dropping logs. The bear blasts through the little circle of men in gear like they are not even there. Guys stand up, stumbling over each other, falling back, hands going for rifles, but it all happens too fast. The bear is not even stopping for them. It barrels straight into the spot where their neatly stacked elk meat should have been, scattering bags, sniffing, snorting. In seconds, everyone in that camp realizes the truth. The bear has already claimed the elk. The meat is his now. They are intruders in his pantry, guns come up, but nobody wants to shoot unless they absolutely have to. This is not a charge aimed directly at a person. This is a dominance move, a statement. The bear is saying, "This is mine, get out." The men back away, slowly, hands shaking, hearts doing drum solos. The bear stands over the remains of the elk, head swinging, watching them with small, intelligent eyes. It huffs, snaps its jaws, tears a chunk from a bag with contemptuous strength. One of the hunters said later that in that moment, he felt like a raccoon caught in a kitchen when the homeowner walks in. Completely outclassed. Caught in the wrong place. No moral high ground. They retreat. They leave their precious meat, their carefully arranged camp, their pride. They go back to their main camp with light packs and heavy minds. That elk is gone. They might as well have never fired the shot. When I talk about that story, what I love is that little ego check embedded in it. These are not city people. These are experienced woodsmen. They know bears. They know the rules. And still, they got reminded in the most direct way possible that on that island, if a giant bear decides something is his, you are just a guest with no vote. And that is kind of the theme that runs through all 15 of these stories. Whether it is a shark coming up from under a board, an orca taking apart a rudder, a hippo flipping a boat, a snake striking from under a rock, or a brown bear blasting into a camp to reclaim an elk, the pattern is the same. We forget that we are not at the top of every food chain. We forget that most of this planet is not designed for our comfort. We build houses and roads and glowing screens, and we start to believe that the wild is just a backdrop for our adventures. Then something with teeth or claws or venom or a giant skull reminds us in a very direct way that we are soft animals walking through somebody else's house. So as you are lying there, maybe drifting off while listening to this, just tuck that little thought away. Not to scare yourself, but to carry a little more respect. The next time you are in the ocean, or on a trail, or near some riverbank, remember there are other stories going on there, other hunters, other lives.